NC State family, it's time for an honest look at your sports world. Let's get you hooked up for Pack Therapy, presented by First Horizon Bank. Here are your hosts, Tim Donnelly and Wolfpack legend Casey Morsell.
Welcome into the first Pack Therapy podcast of the new year. I'm Tim Donnelly, NC State basketball legend, member of the Final Four team from a season ago. Casey Morsell with us as always during basketball season. As always, you can leave questions for Casey. We do this during football season with Mike Lennon, and I want to start doing it with Casey. Go to our YouTube, 99.9 The Fan. Find this video if you're listening to this on some other podcasting software. If you're watching on YouTube, just scroll down. Leave questions in the comments, and we'll get to them next week, the week after, when we assemble a bunch of good questions, and we'll put Casey on the hot seat and make him answer all of them. So questions about this year's state team, last year's state team, basketball in general, ACC, whatever it is, Casey we'll force him to answer. Casey, we have a question for you.
Early.
This one comes from Ian Jackson, 5-star freshman from UNC. He posed it to the media. The question to him was, you have your first rivalry game coming up, NC State UNC on Saturday. How do you feel about it? And his response was, is it a rivalry? Or actually it was, it's a rivalry with a question mark there.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I saw that.
All right, well then, I'm sure he was in a group chat with some former teammates or something.
Yeah.
What's the response?
I mean, he hasn't seen it. He hasn't been in the game. I think once he gets out there and he realizes, especially his first state game being at PNC, it's going to get physical, it's going to get chippy. And I think after the game, I don't think he'll have the same answer. So it's just ignorance.
There it is. Or I mean, and like, you were an ACC player at a different school, UVA, when you were young. Sometimes the freshmen just don't, like you said, they just don't get it.
Yeah.
And it takes time to adjust. It takes time to build chemistry. It takes time to figure it all out. And I actually think both of State and UNC are going through a bit of that. So looking at that Saturday game, it's not surprising that both in their last two games, right? UNC 2 games ago, yep. State last night, as we record this, beat Notre Dame by 1. So, yeah. And Notre Dame, no disrespect, not a terribly scary team this season.
Yeah.
What'd you learn from State getting the win? Middlebrooks hits the free throw to win, defensive stop. They escaped with the victory against Notre Dame. What'd you learn about them?
Well, on Notre Dame's behalf, I mean, terrible. I mean, those are two wins that they should have in the win column. But
you're saying giving up a 4-point play when you're leading by 3 isn't the move, and then
I mean,
having a 7-point lead with 3 minutes left.
Just a breakdown. It's just a complete breakdown on Notre Dame's part. So I mean, I guess State and UNC could take the win, but I mean, if you're Notre Dame, that's moral victories don't exist, but
all right,
that's something to consider.
Well, I'm gonna press you on that a little bit because I actually think State's team this year and State's team last year, the one that you were a part of, kind of feels similar like this time of the year in that you're looking at it and you're going, I know there's more there somewhere, but it's not adding up. Does a win that maybe you didn't deserve, where you're looking at the end going, gosh, we didn't play well enough to win that game, but somehow we escaped with it. Can that spark you to wins that you do deserve? If that makes any sense.
Good point. I mean,
it's like getting a free throw.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
If I'm not knocking down threes and then I get a 1-and-1 and you hit 2, all of a sudden now the basketball's or the rim's a hula hoop.
Yeah,
Could that spark NC State and some of those scores getting a win over Notre Dame that maybe you shouldn't have?
Yeah, I mean, but maybe it could lead to potential wins. I think State's problems are just a bit deeper than ours last year, just in terms of, not in a bad way, but in terms of just trying to find consistency in terms of scoring the ball. I think last year we found like we had a consistent mix of guys who were scoring, and it was just a flow. So I think we were, it was just a lot of schemes and stuff that we just didn't master is how we, got us in a hole last year. But this year is like there's a scoring issue, a defensive stuff that they have to fix. So they have to sharpen the knife in a few more areas in terms of, in order for them to be a successful team.
All right, I'm gonna put on my journalism hat here, and I have to press that answer.
Yeah, go ahead.
Their problems are deeper than the ones you guys were dealing with last year. What are the deeper problems? Like how do you measure the extent of like how serious these problems are?
Yeah, well, good. I think you're still trying to figure out like who are your guys. I mean, in terms of scoring, in terms of defense, just the chemistry isn't necessarily there. I will say that. I mean, that's a deep problem. I mean, even for us, we might not won every game, but we were best friends off the court. So that's the thing. Like, there's so many things I think they have to kind of figure out quick, and it still takes time. I mean, everyone got on campus probably around May of 2024. So, like, that's something to consider when trying to get on the same page and evolve. So they're still capable of getting hot, and hopefully it's not like, you got to be a 5 games, 5 day type setup, but they have potential. You just got to sharpen the knife in a few more areas.
All right, this is going to be my favorite question of this entire podcast. Here's what it is. And I don't even, like, if this is a straight newbie basketball, like, you're such a casual question, just throw it right back at me.
Yeah.
Ben Middlebrooks, your former teammate, last year struck me very much as his role is to play on fast forward. Just, set screens, be physical, rebound, play defense.
Yeah.
You brought it up. I brought it up a billion times. They're still searching for who's going to be their kind of core scorers.
Yeah.
Ben Middlebrooks has double figures in 4 of the last 5 games. It's not always pretty. It's sometimes it's not like, I said it earlier on my show. Nobody is drawing up a play coming out of a timeout to get Ben Middlebrooks curling off his screen and let him, ball handle in the pick and roll. Is there more of an offensive scoring role for Ben Middlebrooks that they should give him a chance to fulfill that is more than, just grabbing the dirty work, offensive rebounds, and tip-ins?
Yeah, I mean, they have no other option.
Part of it is that.
We've
already run through everyone else, so it's, all right, let's see what you got.
Yeah, literally. I mean, because there's a lot of – they're very predictable. Mm-hmm. I mean, because I watched them, like, I think of I was more of a defensive mind. Mm-hmm. So I think in terms of trying to guard, they're going to need a variety of guys to kind of get involved and get score, like just scoring the ball in general. And Ben, like he has like plenty of opportunities game after game after game, and he's taking full advantage of it. So last year he didn't necessarily have to be that guy, and this year, he's a winner. Like, he's just going to do what it takes to put the team in position to win. Like,
like if y'all are playing, say, off season, 4 of you guys are on campus, everybody else is back home or whatever.
Yeah.
If you're playing 2-on-2, like, does Middlebrooks have a bag? Like,
for sure,
he's got all. Okay, all right, that's what I wanted to know.
I mean, and honestly, as you've seen this year, that's really why he's starting to shoot it in
he
game.
Hit a 3 against Notre Dame.
Exactly, because he shoots it like when he's playing pickup and shoot around, and I mean, and he's starting. The fact he's confident to actually start taking it in games, like, he's got a bag that, like, a lot of people sleep on him for.
Count me amongst them. I'm 100% sleeping on it. So we'll put it this way.
Yeah.
Every team, say, needs a go-to scorer, a secondary option,
for sure.
Spark. Like, there's these scoring roles. 3 guys. Let's say 3.
Yeah.
You need a bucket. You're going to go to one of these 3 guys. Who are they? That is, we've been talking about it on our show, and my producer Dennis, who's producing this podcast, what's their identity is a question he keeps asking. Like, what does this team do? And I think you could frame that as, like, who do they look to in tough moments? When they need a bucket, where do they go? So in this exercise, Casey Morsell is not the former player. He's now the coach. Which 3 are you putting there?
I mean,
And don't.
I would say,
and if your friends are
if
listening,
you,
you're
yeah,
like,
no, this is real.
Jaden's my little brother
This is
or whatever.
real.
Like,
Yeah, this is real. I mean, I would say you gotta first. If I was Keatts, I would look more so into Marcus first, only because he's most likely going to drive. When he drives, that's an opportunity that could create for someone else because he draws so much attention on his drives that he has to draw two people.
Talking Marcus Hill.
Yeah, talking Marcus Hill. So that means that's going to lead to an opportunity for an open basket if he can make the right decision. Number two is Jaden Taylor.
That's a big if, but
that is. That's a huge if, but it's most likely going to happen. He's going to have an opportunity to set someone else up.
Cool.
And number two, I mean, you got to look more into. I would look into Jaden. I think Jaden's a guy who can create a shot better than I think mostly everyone. He can create his shot the best out of everybody on the team in terms of breaking someone down or trying to get to a pull up, or he can probably do it the best. I mean, his problem is when he starts to over dribble and he starts to keep it for, I would say, longer than like 4 or 5 seconds. Then it's like things can go wrong, right? Then third, I would think Brandon Huntley-Hatfield. But, I mean...
He's seen his minutes pulled back a little bit, but Keatts is obviously still experimenting with rotations.
But, I think at the end of the game, I don't think you can keep him and Ben out there. I think you got to put Ben out there because Ben, I mean, he's going to... If something goes wrong, shot goes up, he's more likely to get that second chance or that offensive rebound or, that winning play. Like, Ben's more likely to do that. So... Those would be my three, but that's why I told you earlier, like, that identity, that's a deep problem that, like, you got to figure out because who are you? It's January. You start formulating who you are at this point.
So that's kind of an X's and O's part of it. And I love the idea of answering that question with Marcus Hill, almost not because he is the best of something, but it's because of the style he brings, right? It turns it into like a game plan situation. The other side of this, and you brought this up in previous podcasts, is the social element, right? Like you said it earlier, we were best friends. Early in this season, you emphasized how they have to hang out together away from the court and become that team. Dontrez Styles said after the game, and it was echoed by, alluded to by other players in their postgame at Notre Dame. I have the quote right here. We had a halftime talk. We can't go out like this anymore. We have to do something about it. We needed to be more physical and smarter, and that's what we did in the second half. That's in part what Dontrez Styles said. That stuck out to me because you mentioned they all got together in May, and maybe not even that soon or that recent. If somebody I don't know or somebody that is still earning my trust, stands up in the locker room at halftime before the coaches get in. Yeah. Because a lot of times, right, players get in there, coaches talk in the hallway for 4 minutes on what they want their message to be. If somebody stands up and goes like, "Y'all listen up," and I don't trust you. Yeah. The naysayers, the cynic in the back of my mind starts chirping like, this guy, like, who does he think he is? Yeah. The fact that they didn't play well against Notre Dame in the first half and had a real conversation at halftime, regardless of who was leading it, I think bodes well for that chemistry thing that hasn't been there. I'm not saying it's there, but it maybe taking a step in the right direction.
Yeah. I mean, that's huge. I mean, just that conversation, it could definitely go somewhere. But I mean, it's really when they get like punched in the mouth, like when they face adversity, right? Like, I mean, are they going to still have that same message? Like, I think you got to have that over and over and over again because it's basketball. Like, it's a game of runs. You're going to give up, 8-9 on a run probably at some point. Like, it's coming. So you got to have that message over and over again. And it's good to see that message gave them some momentum heading into the second half.
As we continue to grow with Casey here as a co-host, I'm going to sporadically sprinkle in questions about last year's team because I think it applies to just basketball as a whole, and what you guys did was special. Did y'all know, and knowing might not be the right word, but say you go on one of those runs. You're up 4. Yeah. You're leading a game by 4. Other team hits 2 threes and 2 free throws. Yeah. You're down 4. Did y'all know we're going to the big guy for a touch. Where's DJ Burns? Did you know, put the ball in my hands and I'm going to distribute?
Yeah.
Did that kind of stuff need to be drawn up, or was it just inherently known by this point in the season kind of what everybody was going to do and who was going to be the one to stop the bleeding?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of known. I mean, something that you do, you work on those type of, it's like 2-minute, 3-minute drills in practice. Okay. So it's like every type of moment, situation, down 5, down 4, whatever, you worked on it in practice already. So usually, like, Keatts doesn't need to burn a time. For us, or last year's team, we didn't have to burn a timeout. We just let it play out. We'll probably look to Burns if necessary, just because, like, you didn't want to look to him too early, just because.
Big boys get tired.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, a lot of running for offensive tackle. You don't send them on a deep route.
Burn them out, but
that's funny.
But no, like, you just kind of have a good feel, and that's why it's like it's a chemistry thing. It's like you just kind of know what to do, who to go to, like, the type of shots that by that point you know which types of shots you're going to get, because the defense is not going to change in the last 2 minutes. Probably, it's something you've already seen already.
There's a rivalry game, as some would call it, coming up this weekend. After the break, we'll get Casey's look in, and we'll dive into more of the matchup between NC State hosting the Tar Heels this weekend. Stick around. Back here on Pack Therapy, Tim Donnelly, Casey Morsell. Casey, first of all, I'm going to take a step back here. I was going to dive all the way into, the challenges that UNC might present to NC State and how they're going to be dealing with it this weekend. But first of all, give us a memory from a State UNC game. Take us inside. Those of us that haven't been a part of this rivalry, and especially on the basketball side of things, give us something that we wouldn't see or wouldn't know.
Heading into UNC.
Well, just I'm thinking, is there a particular trash talk, a particular play?
Oh yeah,
something that stands out when you think of the State UNC rivalry.
Man, it gets really chippy. There's always. I remember. I mean, I know everyone saw it, but the play where Terquavion at UNC went out like on a stretcher, like crazy.
Like that moment.
Yeah.
In the locker room, y'all taking it personally?
Okay,
that's
real.
That's
it's
real bad blood. Like when those things, because there are teams. I played college football. Unfortunately, guys get stretchered out, a couple times a season. But there were certain teams. You're looking at them going like, "Oh, it's cool. I know you weren't trying to do it." Like, hey, we'll pass along to him that
sure.
you didn't mean it. Then there are some where it's like, I don't know, that hit might have been clean, but forget you, and the hit might be the same hit. The only thing different is the jerseys you're wearing.
Exactly.
So
and that's what it was that game. That's literally what it was. So that's why, like, when we played them, I think we played them like a few months later. Or maybe the same month, but it was the next time we had played them. Like, it was, it was real. It was real.
Ratcheted it up.
Yeah, it turned it up a bit. So, yeah, like that was a crazy one. And then heading into I would say, of course, the ACC championship.
I was just gonna say, you are a bigger person than me. That I asked you for a UNC memory, and you didn't go right to.
That was. That was a crazy moment. I mean, everyone knows about that moment, but it was.
I would have went right to when we ended Armando Baycott's final ACC tournament game and sent him home.
Yeah. That was real.
What I would have said. But I didn't do that.
But playing against them, something interesting about that was like, we didn't have practice. Like that whole run we weren't even practicing.
Cool. 5 games in 5 days. There's not a lot of practice.
Yeah. I mean, we were just us. I mean, we just chemistry is what won that game. Literally.
All right. So now looking towards this weekend, right? This version of State is playing this version of UNC. You're not there. Armando Baycott's not there. Harrison Ingram's not there. DJ Burns isn't there. DJ Horn. It's different teams, same uniforms.
Yeah.
Looking at this one, both teams I think are still trying to find themselves from a basketball identity standpoint.
Yeah.
Freshman Ian Jackson, we talked about him earlier. A little bit of trash talk. but you also brought up you're a defensive mind. Freshman scoring, 21, 22, whatever he's scoring per game over the last 5. Do you bring a little something special for him? Are you changing up your defensive calls every time, trying to confuse them? Like, how do you deal with a freshman that seems to have it going offensively?
Yeah, I think you just got to be physical. I think freshmen, that's something they might be really skilled, but I think the more physical you are, then they start it turns mental at that point. And I think NC State, that's something that could work in their favor based off of the experience that they have. But in general, when it comes to this game, the team that guards the best is essentially going to win. Like, it's going to be a straight defensive brawl. I think they kind of cancel out offensively, even though they have, UNC has more notable scores,
more stars in their recruiting, like 4 and 5 star guys.
Yeah. I think they're going to cancel out, and it's going to be, it's going to go back and forth. Like, it's going to be close. Like, the fans and NC State, like, everyone's going to get into it. It's just who's going to be able to guard at a high level doesn't have to be 40 minutes, but for the longest amount of time. Really.
If it's 33 minutes, it better be the right 33 minutes.
It better be the right 33.
It better not be the first 33.
Yeah.
Because that's how collapses happen.
Exactly.
What is Kevin Keatts like going into a game like this, right? Because we played audio on my show earlier today. We get Coach Keatts.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to watch the film of this one. We're going to learn, and then we just got to get ready for Carolina because they're next up on the schedule.
Yeah.
And my take was, I wish we could have like a video that was his, 2 minutes to the media at the podium.
Yeah.
And as soon as it's over, cut that video to the locker room with the doors shut and what he's saying. Because every coach does it. But what is Coach Keatts like going into the UNC game, maybe differently than going into the Notre Dame game?
Well, I would say it is great that they're going into it with a win, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, pulling off, no matter, even though it was Notre Dame, like, it's still a win that you're heading into the game with. So that's something that he most likely acknowledged that. I mean, and then on top of that, it's one of those things where, the fans are going to be there. Everyone's going to be involved. Now it's one of those things where you got to use that to your advantage. They're going into that game. Keatts is, of course they're doing a whole 9 yards practicing, watching film or whatever, but they gotta. He's for sure putting an emphasis, like, use everything around you to your advantage, right? And don't necessarily shoot yourself in the foot. Last night, in my opinion, home court advantage won that game. Like.
Probably.
Home court advantage won that game, so it helps you to have that on your side. So use all of the factors around you in your favor, and who knows where it could take you.
All right, so we're looking at predictions now.
Yeah.
Because, again, to reference my playing career in football, if you feel like it's one of those games where you need your home crowd all the way in it, you need the student section going nuts. First drive, you might call the flea flicker. You might call the double reverse pass. Your first punt, you might call the fake punt, knowing that if that works, gasoline on the fire.
For sure.
We're talking like backdoor screen lob for the best dunker on the team in the first couple possessions. Like, what is there that equivalent in basketball?
Yeah, start off with like maybe an alley-oop first play, like, get people into it, and then just because that's what's going to lead to that momentum. But that's something that he's probably emphasizing. And then on top of that, man, like, they just gotta. Best way to put it, I know he probably said it, but like, just be connected. Like, they're going to get punched in the mouth. It's going to be a full-on fight. Like, it's just, if they hit you, you can't necessarily divide and turn into individuals, because they need to be a really good team, not necessarily individuals.
All right. Well, and now I'm going to ask you an individual's question, just because of that exact transition.
Yeah.
UNC has an obvious flaw. They have an obvious weakness this season,
for sure,
which is they I think neglected to understand how much not having a traditional post kind of big guy presence was going to hurt their team.
For sure.
State, we've talked about Brandon Huntley-Hatfield a few times on these podcasts. We talked about Ben Middlebrooks a bunch earlier on in this podcast. Are they, and we talked about Ben Middlebrooks' offense, so maybe the answer is already there. Those two guys, are we looking at they need 25, 30 points between the two of them because, that's where they're vulnerable and that's where you can get your advantage? Do you have to keep pounding it into the post?
Not necessarily. No, I mean, they don't need to necessarily have a breakout combining for that amount of months. They don't need to do that. It's really one of those things where UNC struggles, their bigs and have front court have struggled. So now it's you damn sure can't let them get going. Now it's those are the last people that better get going in this game, and they got to make sure it's a huge emphasis. Those guys can't get going. So they got to just win their matchup. Just focus on shutting your guy down, and that's going to help the team. I mean, because at the end of the day, NC State is going to wear out the three guards that they play. That they're going to wear out, or the three guards that they play with the bigs. So.
Oh, okay. Well, when you say NC State's going to wear out the guards, are you talking about their guards or State's guards? Are you saying
NC State's going to wear?
Okay, so you're going to make UNC's perimeter.
Yeah.
Guard and run
for sure
and
because
chase.
Because they're going to be guarded full court for 40 minutes, and they're going to be playing in transition. So All
right, perfect. You've led right into one of the points I've been making about this team. They have have had as of the last couple of games, they've shortened their rotation. Coach Keatts has played a lot of guys. 9 guys are averaging 10 minutes or more per game. They trust their depth. They are, and actually I'm going to bring up the stat for you because it's jarring. They are 339th out of 364th. There's 364 teams in college basketball, Division I. Wow. They are 339th in possessions per game.
Wow.
So, but they're also number 1 in the ACC in fewest turnovers. So they're not. It's not like they aren't possessing the ball. It's not like they're being frivolous with it. They're just slow, right? And use the whole shot clock, but every possession is ending in a shot. Is that a flaw? Because I'm hearing you say we're going to wear out their perimeter players. Yeah. But I'm going well, kind of. They're resting when you have the ball because you're not putting a shot up for the first 23 seconds.
And honestly, that's where you get worn out too. Because if you're not
just swinging the ball on the perimeter,
because
making them shell drill.
Okay, one of the most exhausting teams I've ever played was playing against UVA. Everyone knows.
By the way, they're 364 out of 364, and that's not a joke. They are dead last.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense. So, literally, the way they play, it looks slow, but it's the most exhausting because you're constantly getting hit on screens, getting over screens. You're running constantly on the defensive end, so it wears you out. So if you add a slow half court, using the entire shot clock on top of random transition buckets that they try to get, it's exhausting, and I think that could really work in their favor if they do it the right way.
Is it hard to get a rhythm when you're getting 65 possessions a game versus some teams that are getting 70 plus, 75, 80 possessions a game?
Yeah. It could definitely be hard
because we spent the first however many minutes of this podcast talking about figuring out their identity offensively, and then you're sitting here saying, well, it's hard to get a rhythm when your possessions are so labored.
Yeah, but one of the things though is that for them, the thing is that I'm not gonna say it's tough. Actually, I'll take that back. It's not tough. It's just inconsistent. I think if they consistently played with a certain pace and a certain rhythm every game, then it would be easier to build that rhythm because you know what to expect. But if it's one game high, one game low, and then you're just kind of reading, I don't know, just it changes from game to game, then that's where it gets tough for not just anybody. I mean, for anybody, not just the guys on this team. Yeah.
Let's go ahead and get a prediction or two. And I'm not. I mean, obviously, we should. This is Pack Therapy, the podcast.
For sure.
We're not looking for a unbiased, objective take here.
Yeah.
But one of the ways I make predictions when the prediction is obvious is I call it an if-then statement. So what that means is you got to fill in the blank. If blank happens, then blank happens. So if fill in the blank happens in the game, then State will win. Mm-hmm. what is that blank? What did they have to do? Or if you want to put it like, if they shoot blank percent from the field, like just fill it in with whatever you want. If blank happens, then NC State's going to win. And it could be the opposite. It could be the opposite. It could be if RJ Davis takes 11 threes because he's shooting, 30% from three or lower than that, whatever it is. Like just fill in the blank.
Yeah, I like this. If NC State could force at least 10 turnovers and hold RJ under 20, then they will win the game.
Under 20. He had 26 against Notre Dame. Or, against SMU a couple nights ago.
Yeah.
Under 20.
I believe. Yeah.
All right. 10-plus turnovers, under 20, NC State gets the win. I'll do it just for fun.
Yeah, you go ahead. I want to hear yours.
He's more doctoral in his basketball knowledge. I'll go with this one. And I know you said it's not necessary, but I kind of think it is. If Ben Middlebrooks and Brandon Huntley-Hatfield are in double figures, NC State wins a game. I think you need 10-plus from each of them.
What?
Because there's certain parts. Well, go ahead.
You think both double figures?
10 points or more from each. Well, Ben Middlebrooks has done it in 4 of the last 5 games.
For sure.
And if I'm not mistaken, and we could go back and listen, one of our first podcasts, you were talking about the offensive prowess of Brandon Huntley-Hatfield at Louisville last year. So we know it's in there somewhere.
Yeah.
And most of their offensive scoring, most of their attempts this year have come with a bunch of other big men on the floor. UNC really doesn't have that.
For sure.
So, yeah, I'm going – I like 4 free throws and a couple of trash buckets, and you're at 10. So, I'm
good point.
I'm going 10 from each of them, at least. If they want to score 20 apiece, go ahead. But also I think it changes the way UNC plays. I think then they have to adjust what they want to do. Maybe can't be as perimeter-oriented. So that's what I'm going with.
Perfect.
Defend my point against a guy that knows way more about basketball than I do. Again, leave questions for Casey in the YouTube comments. We'll periodically have him answer those. And enjoy the game over the weekend. Right?
Yes, sir.
Casey's going to be there. If you see him,
definitely
go ahead and let him know you heard about it on the podcast.
Sure.
And then, I don't know, DM up or something. That's been Pack Therapy, the podcast. We'll see you next time. Have a great week, everybody.